Hello, welcome to Group 18 Psychology at Work presentation. Brendan, Pat, Peter and Tom will be exploring the topic of leadership, linking certain theories to practice in an effort to highlight the pros and cons of some of these theories. Firstly, effective leadership is integral in achieving development and success in all environments, such as sporting and learning, but in particular a working environment. It is a multifaceted and complicated topic which must be correctly realised in order to avoid unsustainable work environments. Qualities displayed by a leader play an important role, whether it's enthusiasm, adaptability, commitment, or many more. There are 8 applicable leadership theories, some of which contain sub-theories. Firstly, the great man theory refers to the idea that leaders are born, not made, and that they will rise to the occasion when necessary. Contrastingly, the trait theory suggests that people are born with inherited traits that are suited to leadership, and the correct amount of combination of these traits can make a good leader. The behavioural theories include the role theory and managerial grid, and suggest that leaders can actually be made and are therefore grounded in learnable behaviour. Participative leadership sees involvement amongst the subordinates in the decision-making process, creating a less competitive environment through use of a joint goal. Situational leadership is related in that it refers to the ability of the leader to adapt to the situation, such as the capability of the subordinates for particular tasks. Situational leadership also includes the path-goal theory, which will be looked at in depth. The contingency theories of Fiedler's LPC theory, cognitive resource theory, and strategic contingencies theory are similar to situational leadership in that there is no one best way of leading, and that certain methods are only good in certain situations. Transactional leadership is simply that subordinates work for rewards or to avoid punishments, and have a clear chain of command, focusing solely on what their superior asks. Finally, transformational leadership involves the subordinates following an inspirational person, which in turn makes them enthusiastic and passionate.
We will be focusing on the path-goal theory, originally developed by House in 1971 and revised over the next several years. The theory argues that leaders can adjust their own behaviours to adapt to any environment and in this way find the most suitable style for any particular situation. The theory states that the main goal of the leader is to help subordinates obtain their goals, personal or organisational, and to provide them with the necessary direction and support to achieve these goals. The theory proposes 4 different kinds of leadership styles: directive, supportive, participative, and achievement-orientated leadership. The theory suggests that to be an effective leader, one must know which style of leadership to use and when to use it. Directive leaders tell subordinates what is expected of them and give specific guidance and enforce rules and procedures. The supportive leader likes a friendly environment and gives strong attention to the needs and well-being of his or her subordinates. The participative leader involves his or her subordinates in the decision-making process. And the achievement-orientated leader seeks to improve performance, setting high standards, and shows confidence that his or her subordinates can achieve these standards. There are a number of studies, mainly produced in the 1980s and early 90s, that examine House's path-goal theory and study the link between House's theory and practice. For example, in 1989, Keller examined the need for clarity in performance relationships. He found support for the path-goal theory in that a need for clarity moderates the relationship between leader-initiated structure and employee satisfaction. Keller noted that the less structure there is in a workplace, the more likely a leader will be to add structure by coaching or guiding employees. Initiation of structure, or directive leadership, was found to be more effective than other styles of leadership in situations where tasks were ambiguous and the workplace was unstructured. In this situation, directive leadership helps to keep employee effectiveness and satisfaction high, and increases the amount of time and energy spent on a task. Another study, Fry et al. 1986, tested the moderating effects of interdependence between leadership behaviours, satisfaction, and performance. The research was conducted on sports teams and found strong support for the path-goal theory. It was noted that achievement behaviour is very important in sports teams, and participation is less important because of the team nature of the sport. As such, the research finds that organisations with highly interdependent work groups need leaders who take a directive leadership approach. Leaders must be instrumental in controlling and coordinating group members either through direct supervision or formalised rules. If group members work independently of each other, a supportive leadership approach is suggested. A coaching, counselling, and consideration leadership style may lead to greater collective group performance in groups that work independently of one another. In 1982, Fulk and Wendler identified 4 areas of research that they considered had not received sufficient attention from previous studies. They attempted to predict outcomes using the path-goal theory. The 4 areas of research examined were leader influence up the organisation, achievement orientation, contingent approval, and punitive behaviours. The findings supported the underlying premise of the path-goal theory and demonstrated the robustness of the theory in regard to leader behaviour. The result also showed that the theory could be applied outside the normal parameters of leadership research. The relationships between job attitudes, work environment perceptions, and supervisors' rating of job performance was investigated by Butler and Elrich. Their results supported the path-goal theory. It must be noted that the highly structured and standardised environment investigated in the study, an ambulatory clinic, meant that there was considerably less pressure on leaders in the organisation. However, given the complexity of the tasks being undertaken, the effect and need for leadership was still found to be strong.
Our first case study that links theory to practice is of Columbia Records. Columbia Records is one of the most successful recording companies in history, being an industry leader and innovator since the 19th century. The styles of leadership that have been observed in this case study include participative leadership, value-based leadership, and supportive leadership. The first is participative leadership. In the 19th century, Columbia Records founder Edward Easton applied an innovative approach to leadership, considering his employees as team members and a source of knowledge, allowing them time for thinking. Value-based leadership is another version of leadership that was added by House to his 1996 version of the path-goal theory. The basic premise of this style is that leaders are passionate about their position and will go through much self-sacrifice for their job. This was again evident with Easton, who accomplished many self-sacrificial acts and a high number of risks for the company. The supportive leadership style was evidenced in the 1970s with the then head of Columbia Records, Goddard Lieberson, who felt it was necessary to support the musical ideas of artists such as Billy Joel, Barbra Streisand, and Carlos Santana. He gave them constant encouragement, increasing their self-esteem with repeated positive feedback about their work. The next case study of the path-goal theory in practice is within the construction industry, using Laing O'Rourke, a head contractor for major projects, as an example. The construction industry is a highly complicated industry in that it is project-driven. It is defined by tight budgets and timelines, with the work being labour-intensive and primarily undertaken by subcontractors who bring their own self-interests to the table. The construction of the new clinical services building at Blacktown Hospital consists of 20 internal staff with various specialties, whether it be engineering, project delivery, planning or commercial, and 300 subcontract labour from different subcontractors. The path-goal theories in practice on Blacktown Hospital project include participative, directive, and achievement-orientated leadership. Participative leadership style is used by the project leader in many instances, asking for constant feedback from his subordinates before making a decision. The project leader relies and ultimately trusts the decision of his team members, as they are highly skilled in their field. Directive leadership is displayed with the core and enabling process set up by the business. It dictates the roles and responsibilities for workers during different stages of a project life cycle. Before the next stage of the project can be enabled, each subordinate must have completed their responsibilities. The achievement-orientated leadership is enabled through a project plan. Short-term target programs are set to subcontractors that challenge them to complete the task in the duration set. Where possible, hurdles are removed in advance so the subcontractors can meet their goals. Challenges for the achievement-orientated leadership include the interface between the subcontractors and tight budgets. In summary of the second case into the path-goal theory in practice, multiple leadership styles were displayed to manage and ultimately lead a successful project.
In conclusion, the path-goal theory is still highly relevant in today's fast-paced society. After examination, we have found that for the path goal theory to be effective in practice, leaders must be able to correctly select a leadership style based on the environmental situation and employer characteristics, and they must be flexible in their approach to leadership. Thank you for listening to our presentation.